Hello. We are gonna go ahead and get started on the second part of our lecture. I'm gonna start sharing my screen before I do. Any questions come up while I was gone or during lunch? All right, gonna hop into it then. All right, here is our application when last we saw it. We had gotten pretty much everything on the page. Oh, I need to stop my video before my computer crashes. 1 second. Goodbye, y'all. There we go. We had gotten a lot of our information on the screen, but we're missing a few key pieces here. So we need to identify whether or not the pet should have this symbol or this symbol. And we need to identify if this pet button is displayed or this pet button is displayed. So if our pet is adopted, we will see the already adopted button, which is grayed out. Else we'll see this blue button so we can adopt the dog or the cat or mini pig, whatever we want. So let's start with our first goal of this one. So we do have a gender attribute. So can I get some ideas on what do you think we should do to determine if we should display this symbol or this symbol?
We should check the pet's gender.
Okay, how are we going to do that?
Check pets. You pass the pets in.
Mm-hmm. So we do have the pets and we have gender, but like, what are we going to be using to check that?
You can make a helper function outside the render.
Oh yeah, that would work. So we could do that. I do like that idea. What about making a ternary inside of here?
Works too.
Since it's a very small amount of data, doing one or the other I think would be super lightweight and doable. So what was your thought? It would be the same logic. So what was your thought behind it? What would the check be?
If gender equals male, then put the male sign. If it doesn't, put the female sign.
Okay. Is everyone pretty familiar with ternaries at this point?
So,
yes.
Yeah. So you can only do ternaries in here. Is that correct?
So you are allowed to do ternary. I mean, technically you could do a lot in here, but you are allowed to do ternaries here. I would recommend only doing ternaries and not further logic in here because this should your renders should handle mainly presentational logic. But this is a simple like, am I showing this or am I showing this? Not like some math, not any like assignments, just a simple like, is it this one or this one? So I think I think a ternary works for this one.
Okay, so it's not that an if statement wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. It's more just for like convention purposes.
This is just like clean and easy, and I like it.
Yeah.
But you could totally have done the extra method as well. Not as well, instead.
Yeah. So So you couldn't do an if.
No, you could. You could. You just would. It would be better if you didn't full if. It would be better to have done it in another method, like check gender, something like
just
this.
Just to get cleaner.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. Okay.
Exactly, because like that would be super long if we try to do that there, and I don't think that it would work. So it would be better just to build that up there and then call it down here, and then it would either render this or this.
Yeah.
Cool.
Got it.
Cool. Awesome. Let's take a look at that. And male is not defined.
I think it should be. Oh, it's gotta maybe it's. Is it?
A string, probably. Oh, my notes. Okay. Final pets. And there we go. Cool. All right. Now that we have that, kind of taking what we did there. What about down here? How can we decide which button we're going to display?
same thing, just with a true false. It's going to be on the is adopted section of it instead.
I like it. Is
You can just put question mark after is adopted. It's a
even
Boolean.
shorter. I like it. And we'll do this, and if it's true, we have this. Else we're going to do that. Awesome. Let's take a look. Awesome. So the other one is now gone since they have all been, none of them have been adopted yet, but it looks like it's working. So perfect. So that's pretty much everything we need to display things on the page. Do we want to work on getting this adopt button to work now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So to do that, to get that to change, kind of throw some ideas out on me, at me. Where does that change happen?
It happens in
the state of the app.
Yeah, up here. So we're probably going to need something up here for that to change. So in our app, we can name something like, I don't know,
handle adopt.
Handle adopt. I like it. And for now, let's go ahead and just do a console log. Adopt. And get this displaying in our console before we put our logic there. So how am I getting this down to everything again?
Pass it as a prop.
Perfect. Okay. We'll do handle adopt equals this dot handle adopt. And in pet browser, we will do the same thing for pet. Does this part make sense, everyone?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, now that we have handle adopt here, where does it go?
It would go on the adopt pet button as a on click.
I like it.
Hey X, real quick.
Yeah.
Pet browser. What is that component doing again?
So pet browser is our component that
renders.
Yeah. So this is not rendering, but it's doing the logic where it is going through and mapping through our pets, and then it will render the pet component.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. So I like this here, but I kind of want to break this out into its own method. So I'm going to on click or handle click. We'll do handle adopt there. All right. Cool. And then I need to pass this. We will pass our handle click down here. On click, handle click, Oh, it's in my render. There we go. Let's get rid of this white space. All right, cool. So that logic is taken out of here. Now we can trigger it with this. And we're getting adopt in our console. Cool.
X, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why did we build the handle adopt function all the way up in app?
Because we are going to need to change state up here for our adopt. So because our state is up here, we're going to need to update our state. And we're going to need to find our pet that we're updating, and we're going to need to change the state of is adopted from true to false. So in order to do that, we need to have this inside of our app, so we have access to state.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Now that we have that, we have this console logging. We need to change the state here. But this is going to be a little weird and complicated because our data, we take a look at what our actual data looks like. Inside of pet, our isAdopted is inside of a pets array. So let's go all the way actually up to app and take a look at it. It's in a pets array, an array of objects under the key of isAdopt. So the question is going to be, how do we get this? How do we dig into our state and grab what we need, change what we need, and then put it back and update it?
Is the ID up to handle adopt?
Oh, I love that. That's a great idea. Okay, so then we'll put the ID here. So, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
We haven't done destructuring for ID, and this is below here, so we'll just have to do this dot props dot pet ID.
Did you not use the event target?
What was that?
Could you use the event target? I mean, you don't have to, but is that possible?
We could, but in general, unless let me think about which one's better there. In general, I prefer to handle things with state and things being passed down versus grabbing things from the DOM unless I absolutely have to. Generally, it's kind of the same idea of handling things with state versus handling things with your form and things from your DOM. So I think that this is better practice to do this. So we're not like querying something from the DOM unless we absolutely have to, and then we're setting parts of state back up.
Gotcha, that makes sense, thank you.
But functionally, it would work. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Let's get our, was it pet.id? Did I do that right? Yeah. Up here, we'll put our pet ID. And let's just, for the moment, console log pet ID. Make sure we're getting that. Cool. Boop. Let's get our console back up here. Awesome. That is our very long ID. Now that we have our ID, how are we updating the state? How are we grabbing the pet that we have to update?
We can use the pet ID to then set the state of the pet that matches that ID, and then target the isAdopted.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Now, I'm going to type some of this out. We're going to use the spread operator again, and we'll break it down once I'm finished and talk about it. So we'll do this dot set state. What we're going to do is we are going to take pets, and we are grabbing pets because we are going to replace the entire array of pets that currently exists. We're going to replace it with a copy of the pets, but that copy needs to be mapped over. Actually, we're going to grab the pet for it, and we are going to check for the pet ID. And if the pet ID matches, we're going to change the pet isAdopted to true, else we're just going to return the pet. So it's something like if, I think I stole this from one of John's lectures, pet ID equals.
You can do this with a ternary, can't you?
I'm not sure we can do it with a ternary, only because we also have to return the pet no matter what. We might, let's try something.
You can use a second spread operator on pet to then build a ternary if the ID is the same, and then switch the
let's try it.
isAdopted.
Walk me through it. So what do I do?
You can put return pet.id equals pet ID. And then you can do, and the D has to be lowercase.
Oh, thank you.
Then ternary, then you can do curly braces, pet So do the spread operator, then comma, then you can do is adopted : true.
I like
with
it.
another curly brace at the end, and then you can do colon pet after not there. Oh yeah, there for the true, and then after the curly brace, you do a colon and true, or for not true, colon pet.
Cool. Awesome. Wow, that's so clean. I love it. Let's give it a try. Nice. Great job. Good solution.
Can we go over that ternary statement again?
Of course. We can go over this entire thing. So once we set states, inside we're going to target pet from the state we're updating. We're making a copy of the state, but before this kind of gets spread out, we are going to map over our state and or our pets array, specifically currently in state. In our pets array, we are going to do this ternary. And with a map, when you're mapping over something, the item that you are changing needs to be returned. So we are returning this line, and we're saying if the pet ID is equal to the pet ID we passed in, then we are going to change is adopted to true. And we're making a copy of the pet with the spread operator and changing is adopted to true. And we are going to return that new pet. Else, we're going to return the pet as is, because that pet does not exist, or that pet is not the one that matches. So kind of what this would look like if you broke it out into a if statement is something like if, this was what I was going to write before, but if pet ID equal pet.id, pet.is adopted is equal to true, return pet, else, let me close this. Return pet. So this is doing the same thing as this, except for this is in one line and is super clean. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
So why'd you have to do the spread operator in your ternary, but not in your if statement?
So this is making a copy of the entire pet so we can grab it in here. It is preventing us from having, or this is helping us not have to do this multi-line thing going on right here. So this is making a copy of the pet, and this is changing is adopted to true, and then this returns the entire pet in this single line here inside of these curly braces. So it prevents us from having to just break it out like this. Like you could do this and do this here too, but this is just cleaner.
Yeah, no, I guess what I'm confused on is why did you have to do the spread operator and make a copy of pet? Because if those two things do the same thing, then why did you have to make a copy of pet with the spread operator in the first statement, but when you wrote out the if statement, you didn't have to do that. You just wrote pet.isAdopted.
Because this is making a copy, because if we didn't do this here, so if we tried to do this like this, we would need to do pet.isAdopted equal true, but there's no way for us to return pet in a single ternary kind of like this. What this does instead is these curlies, with the way that the spread operator works, these curlies essentially are the outer object curlies for pet. When we make the copy of pet, we are grabbing is adopted, turning it to true, and then these curlies resolve to spreading everything in pet into them, and then therefore becoming the new pet object. And so when that resolves, this becomes pet with adopted as true in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's also because we're returning that as well.
Yes, exactly. This allows us to return everything on one line versus we couldn't really do that if we tried to do it this way up here.
Mm.
Cool.
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 I think we gave you an extra bracket on line 35.
Oh yes, probably from this. There we go. Make sure it still works. Cool. All right. So we have this updating now. It looks great. I love it. Next, we need to do the filter. So the idea behind the filter is we are able to click on any of these and it will change what's displayed here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of thinking about what we need. Someone who we haven't heard from yet, kind of give me an idea. You don't have to like be too specific unless you have specific ideas. What do you think we need to do in order to update this filter type with the type that we select here? You don't need the entire process, just like where do we start?
Is it the same API?
It's the same API. So if we take a look at our select, we have all these values for all cat and dog and micropig. I don't think micropigs are real. I think that they grow into normal pigs. But anyways, we have this here. So we have the ability to select a value from here. And since we have that, we could maybe use that somehow to change this filter type to the type that we picked from our select. So we'll handle the fetch in a second, but let's separate those two things. Let's just focus on how do we get this changed to either dog, cat, or micropig.
Could we switch on the value?
We could switch on the value. So what things do we need then? Like,
We need to be able to target the value.
we do. So, okay, we'll do this down here first then. So we'll need to target the value. So how can we, I think we can do that. Do you have any ideas of an event handler that might grab that information for us?
Popcorn Andy.
Thanks, Josh. I'm thinking maybe like on change.
I love it. Let's do that. All right, let's create a handle change here. And we will go ahead and define handle change up here. So let's go ahead and, since this is an event, and this isn't really a bit of state that we are passing down to filter, I think anyways, it might be. No. Let's go ahead and see what our event, it brings up, I forgot who asked this, kind of whether or not we can target things from the DOM. Dot target dot value. Let's go ahead and see what we get when we select something.
Do we have to save app.js?
Micropig. Well, we didn't quite do anything in here yet, but it's good to save anyways. I should really get that extension that saves everything for me, but okay. Cool. So now we are selecting, we're getting the right value for these. Great. Now that we have that, how do we get this all the way back up to app?
We could send a fetch down to it, or
I don't think we need to send the entire fetch, but we should send something down to it. So I like that idea. So let's like, what to call this? Let's do change pet. And we will give it a new type that is being brought up. And let's, for right now, console log type. So then we take change pets. We'll go ahead and bring it down to our pet filter. And then in our pet filter, we will go ahead and call it here and pass it the event.target.value. Now, we are doing this instead of state because we don't have any piece of state that necessarily holds the value from that form. With before, we were passing state that happened to have our ID, so it worked out well. In this case, this is an example that I cannot help but grab something from the DOM in order to do this, so this works out.
We're capturing user input.
Exactly.
Switch time.
And it looks like this is now console logging from app. Cool. All right, anything about bringing this down, grabbing this from the selection menu? Any that does not make sense, or is that pretty clear at this point? Cool. All right, let's go back up to app. So here's an interesting thing. Here's a thought. In our README, when we saw the filter here, the APIs, there are two types of calls. If it's an all, why? If it's an all, then we're going to do this URL. If it's not an all, then we're going to pass the end here to, or this URL will have this query string here. That's basically making a request to our database for everything that's type cat. So we just have to, don't worry too much about why it's like this, but more about like knowing that this is what we need. So whatever the type is, whether it's cat or dog or micropig or all, or I guess cat or dog, we would pass it here and this would bring back that pet or the list of those pets. So how do we, throw some ideas at me. How are we going to do that? Well, let's.
Would we be bringing our fetch into that, like do like an if statement into that new function we just made?
I like the idea of the fetch statement. I like the idea of bringing in the fetch. I wonder if there's a way if maybe we could bring our new type into our existing fetch and write less code though. So let's take a step back. Let's start with changing state. What do I need to change state for this particular filter? What do I need to target specifically?
Filters.
Yeah, so filters, specifically we're looking at the type. We're going to pass this new type. So filters is something that we don't need to dig into. We just need to replace the type with a new type altogether. So we'll just make sure that we do that first. And then if I look at my components and I look at filter and there we go. Filter is now dog. Filter is now micropig. Filter is now all. Cool. So our fetch is triggered by this button, which triggers this fetch specifically. The URL that we need is going to be this URL plus, what was it?
Mark equals type.
Yes. I'm impressed with everyone's memory. That is far better than mine. I can never remember what I'm looking at. So this is what we need for that fetch. So what are some ideas you have? I like the idea of the if to, in order to kind of have this fetch either go for all pets or a specific pet.
Seems to me like there needs to be a conditional statement that says if there's an argument that's taken and you send it to that specific one, and if not, just send it to types.
I like it. What if we passed a variable here called URL, and we maybe defined our URL up here to equal the default URL. There might be cleaner, better ways to do this, but this is what I was thinking of. And then a conditional if something, we will change the URL to equal what is it? Question type, and then we will pass in whatever type we have in state. So this dot filters dot type.
So you're going to need a state there. This dot state that
thank you.
filters. You can check if that specific statement is equal to all.
I like
or not equal to all.
I like it. So if this dot state dot filters dot type equal, or how about does not equal all?
Yeah.
We'll do. There we go. We'll do this. Okay, let's test this, and we'll go over it one more time if it doesn't make sense. I need to put a let in front of our URL. All right, so change this to cats. Find all. We got all cats. Change this to micropics. I'm really disappointed that there's no pictures to go with these. All micropics. Change it to all again. And it looks like we got a mix of them. So again, what this is doing is we defined our URL up here. I'll go ahead and get rid of this now. We are saying that if this is not all, if this is anything but all, our filter type here, then we are going to change our URL to be assigned to this. So some of you may be a little lost and wondering like, well, how is this getting triggered in the first place, right? So when we change our state and we hit find pets, this find pets is being fired with the new change in state after we changed it up here. So this updates our state. This fires this with the new state that was updated. So it's now looking, it just fires this again. It's now looking at the state that we had updated with the either dog, cat, or micropig, and then it's passing it through so we can do that check.
And then does that mean that because the way we set up the rendering using a state that it's just replacing all of these things?
Yes. So when we do this, this will just replace, this is super dynamic. This will now just replace everything that we had with the appropriate data, because none of it is specific to like cats or dogs or micropigs. It's just general data that we're passing through that could be any type of object that matches these particular kind of pet objects, but like it can be all cats, it can be all dogs, it can be whatever. They can all have the name that starts with an R, whatever. As long as they match the attributes that we have in pets, we can pretty much pass anything through here, or any array with objects. Cool.
That's nicer than displaying none.
Yeah, that's. Was that another solution or? No,
I was just thinking like the way we would filter and like in Mod 3, like we would display block. Yada yada.
You're right. Yeah. Now that I think about it, that's part of the magic of React. It makes all of that way easier. So that I believe is all our deliverables for this lab. Let's talk. What didn't you understand? What would you like to go over further?
When does the fetch all pets get fired up? And when is the event happening?
Let's walk through it. So we defined fetch all pets here, and we passed fetch all pets down to our pet filter. Inside of our pet filter, we called fetch all pets right here. This is attached to a on find pets click, which is called down here when this button is clicked. So every time this button is clicked, it fires on find pets click, which then calls this .props.fetch all pets, which then references where it's defined all the way up here, and then calls this entire fetch again.
Damn.
Damn, indeed. What might be something that might make this easier for you to understand is to like take some time, and when you either code this out or when you watch the video, draw out what that like flow and state looks like. Like pick a method and kind of just draw out like from app, where does that state go? Like draw a picture or just a circle with app in it. Name your function, just draw arrows of it going to filter and then pointing to a button, and then write on click and then draw arrows pointing back all the way up to app. So maybe doing a visual of it might help. But yeah, that's it. Anything else that we want to go over again in more detail? How full is everyone's brains right now? How are we doing? Can I get to the fist of 5? 5, no more today? Okay, alright. Okay, alright, that's fair. Alright, well, this is pretty much all I have for the rest of the lecture. I'll be around if you have questions, but I'll let you get back to it, and I'll reopen your breakout rooms. I'm going to stop recording now and stop sharing my screen.